Hey, everybody. My next guest is the owner and head producer of Demos That Rock, specializing in voice demos for talent working at all levels, especially the big leagues. But you may know him from his excellent YouTube channel, VO Buzz Weekly, which he co-hosts with fellow voice actor Stacey J. Aswad. He's produced thousands of commercials for companies like Nike, Chevy, Budweiser, the big ones. He's the VO producer to the stars, and one glance through the videos that you see on VO Buzz Weekly, that proves it. Just all the talent that's out there is on his channel. And he recently made a video about doing more demos from home, where the talent is in a remote studio. And I thought this would just be a great opportunity to dig in and learn about the demo creation process, what it takes to record a demo with a remote producer, and just really taking your demos up a level. And I just know we're going to learn a ton from him. I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Chuck Duran. Chuck, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really grateful.
I am beyond happy to be here with you, Mike. I mean, as I said earlier on our pre-chat, man, I'm a huge fan of you and what you do and why you do it and how you do it. Gosh, such a great resource to not only the voiceover community, but the entire freaking tech world out there that needs to find out what's the good thing to have.
What's the good thing?
So thank you so much, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. I've been watching you in VO Buzz Weekly. I remember, I think I discovered you first when I was learning about recording my demo, and I think it was with Bob Bergen. It was with Bob Bergen. And yeah. I learned so much about like the interaction between talent and producer. And it was just so inspirational. Your channel and everybody that you talk to, what you and Stacey do is such an inspiration to me. And I'm so grateful that you've been able to spend some time with us today. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. We'll just dig in. I really like, as I said, I like watching the videos that you make about creating demos, because lots of voice actors, and especially like the people who watch my channel, they may be new to working with producers, to working with directors. And so many of your videos are a great example of what working with a director is like, both getting the direction and like just the mechanics of the demo. When you're working with a beginner, I presume that you maybe coach some beginners, like how do you get people comfortable in the booth when they're making a demo? Like, is there any things people should be aware of when they're first talking with a director for the first time?
Yeah. I mean, listen, when I'm working with anybody that's interested in, having a demo produced, we have a long conversation. There's a whole pre-production meeting that 2-hour pre-production meeting that goes into the production of a demo, and that's when we kind of just get to know each other a little bit. I always want to know who the person is, what their personality's like, what they don't like, where they are in their life. Are they happy? Are they frustrated? And all that stuff, because I mean, when you're creating a demo, there's certain elements that need to be showcased in that demo. So, one of those is, in the old days, it was kind of more about your voice, oh, wow, he's got a good voice, you should do voiceover. Right. That's not really the case anymore. I mean, a good voice helps, right? Because that's like you got a good instrument. But it's really more about your personality, your genuine you. And we need to showcase that. And if you're not in a good place in your life and that comes through on the demo, then this is not good, right?
Right.
So I always try to cut through all the BS and really find out where the person's at, and almost like becoming friends, really fast, because they can ask me anything. I'm an open book, and I like to ask them a lot of personal questions. I mean, nothing crossing the line or anything like that, but personal questions. And in the interim, we laugh, yeah, and we build a little rapport with each other, and then they feel comfortable with me. And now I know a lot more about them than most strangers. And once you build that level of comfort with somebody, it's easier to break that wall and to work together and to have fun. Because I always say that if you're going to do a demo, Okay, even if you're working with a director or a producer or somebody who's both, you want to have fun, because if you're scared, that's going to come through. And
Yeah.
I've always noticed that whenever, like, listen, I have a YouTube channel, VO Buzz Weekly. We've been doing it for 10 years, so there's a lot of people that see me, even though I'm not, but they see me as like some, celebrity status type of person. And so when they first contact me, I mean, even by the email, oh my God, I can't believe you returned my email. I'm like,
Yeah.
of course, dude, I'm like a regular guy. And right. And I'm sure you get that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But nobody is above anybody. I'm just like you, you're just like me. This industry is the most giving industry in the entire world. So the one thing that you don't need to be in the voiceover industry is afraid, because everybody wants what's best for you.
Yeah.
And I only say that when you're working with reputable people. All right, because there are some people out there that are after the buck,
For sure.
and they just want your money, and they will tell you whatever you want to hear in order to get that. And I know that, Mike, you don't do that, and I know that I absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, don't do that. I don't care about the money. I know I'm going to make money regardless, so I put that aside, and I take the talent, and that's my goal.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel, is that you need to learn that when you're working with somebody reputable, they don't care if you mess it up, right? You don't have to be perfect.
Right.
You want to be able to just have fun, and through the imperfections and through all the mistakes comes the magic.
Yeah.
So if you allow yourself to just mess everything up, man, that's where the magic's going to come, and you're going to be able to create a product that people hear and go like, wow, that's entertaining. That really makes me feel good. I like that person. I think I would like to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and what you're saying there is just gold, because so often the director, I feel like the director's job is to put the talent at ease, because really it's amazing the imperceptible clues we get through people's voices when they're not 100% confident, when they're not comfortable in the booth, when their nerves are showing through, and they get amplified 1,000-fold when you can't see them, when all you can hear is the voice. And being able to put somebody at ease, I think is magic. It really is what you can do.
And it's not always easy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it can be done. I notice that people get to the point where, like, you know what, I feel comfortable now, and all of a sudden they start letting loose and being themselves, and that's when I say, you see the person that you're being right now? And they go like, yeah, I feel good right now. I go, that's the guy that we need, or the gal that we need to capture on your demo. That's the person that people are going to say, yes.
Right. And I think that, you probably can speak to this even more, but you mentioned before, like, having a good voice. My experience recently is, guys, like I've always said, heard, you've got a voice for radio, you've got this big, and I get accused of sounding announcery because my voice has this certain quality to it. But it's my experience now is every voice can be a good voice for voiceover, right? There isn't a bad voice.
No. It's
more about what you bring to it, that it's your ability to act and feel comfortable. And
and by the way, what is acting? What is great acting? Great acting.
Make believe.
No, see, that's the thing. It is make believe, but great acting is when you don't know that the person is acting.
For sure.
Right? And so a lot of people mistake, the two, and then you end up hearing their demo and they sound like they're acting.
Right.
Not good.
Right.
And then another one, the flip side of that is when people they have their script and they're reading / acting, but you can hear them reading, and then they're not acting. And this industry is voice acting. Not voice reading. And so there's a little fine line between reading and acting. And so I always encourage people take an acting class.
Yeah.
Because in an acting class, you learn how not to act. You know what I mean? Basically,
Right,
you learn
right.
how to be you, and how to be genuine, and how to be relatable, and how to and how not to like oversell anything. Right.
Right.
When I'm telling somebody about a great restaurant I just went to, I'm enthusiastic about it. Right. Because God, I just had a really great experience at this place. Dude, you got to check it out. And people believe it, and then they'll go there. But the reason why they believe it is because it's real.
It's real, truthful, honest. Yeah, absolutely.
It's truthful, honest, exactly. And so you need to take those words off any script, internalize them as your own, and then deliver them as the truth.
Yeah.
You know, not selling a car. You're not selling cornflakes. You know, forget about selling. Just talk about it, and the more genuinely you can talk about something that you don't care about, that's great acting.
Yeah, right. And certainly that's the direction all the scripts have now. All the scripts are. It doesn't have to be perfect. We want it to sound conversational. We want it to sound real and everyday and honest and authentic. And it doesn't sound like call now. It doesn't sound like that anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, some things they want that call now guy. You know, they and that's okay. When it says on the script that's what they want, then you give them that, right? Yeah. It's a color, it's a seasoning. I always look at voiceover as like a chef. You know what I mean? If you only use salt and pepper, you could never make Italian food, right? You need the seasonings for Italian food, or Mexican food, or Indian food for that matter. And so look at the things that you add to your read as a seasoning, and being a chef with those words and those feelings, and colors that you want to throw into your read. It's not just black and white.
Right. Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's great advice. That's great advice. I want to switch gears for just a second. Sure. When you're vetting somebody and they're coming to you and they're saying, I want to make that demo and I want to make it, we're going to do it remotely. What are you looking for them in their studio? Like, do you go through a vetting process to make sure that their sound is right, that they're, what are you looking for from the tech side of it?
Well, I mean, listen, the first thing that I'll say, especially for beginners, because they don't know this, the industry has changed a lot. COVID had a lot to do with it when everything went remote. Like literally the big agencies were told by the producers and ad houses, if your talent does not have an in-home broadcast quality studio, do not audition them. Because we don't want to hear people that we like that don't have their studio, right? Because it's all going to be remote. Mm-hmm. So the agent said, hey, if you don't have a broadcast quality studio at home, we can't send you any more auditions. So what happened? Everybody got a broadcast quality studio. People that were acting and maybe just doing on camera, they weren't doing on camera anymore. So what did they want to do? Voiceover.
Voiceover, for sure.
What didn't they have? A home studio. So they all got broadcast quality home studios, right? And people like you and others out there were guiding some of these people on what to get, what not to get. You know, you don't have to spend $1 million to have a broadcast quality studio, but nowadays it's imperative.
It's the baseline.
Like, don't even make a demo. Well, you can't make a demo remotely if you don't have a studio. Yeah. You could go to a studio, right, which I've done with people. And the only reason why I've ever had people go to an outside studio and to record remotely and not use their own is because they weren't too friendly with maybe the mechanics of, like, you know, being an engineer on their own, which is very, very simple. You're doing two things. You're hitting record, you're stopping record, and then you're exporting a file. And sending it to me. That's it. That's the experience that you need to be an engineer in your own studio. Right. But if they don't want to mess with that because they're a little nervous about that, and I don't like try to, you know, change their mind, I just say, oh, great. Then you can go to another studio, okay, and I'll direct you from there. Not a big deal. And then you don't have to be engineer. You can just be voice actor. But it's still remote.
Yeah.
You know, even they're in another studio, we're still recording remotely. Yeah. So, number one, studio, imperatively important in today's day, right? And I'm not talking about a USB mic.
Right.
That's not broadcast
That
quality.
blue snowball's probably not going to cut it.
It's not gonna. It's not gonna cut it. I know you might read something online that says, "Yeah, get this." No, it's not gonna cut it. And if you tell an agent anywhere that that's what you're using, they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, okay, we're gonna have to upgrade that."
Yeah.
So, your studio is so important. I guide people, right, as to maybe what they should or shouldn't get. Depending on their budget. And obviously, if somebody has a great budget, then they can get something that they will never have to replace, right? Just go for the top of the top.
Yeah.
And if they're on a really tight budget, then there's a good studio option for that as well, right, Mike?
Right. For sure.
And so when I'm working with somebody, yes, I want them to have their own studio. If they don't and they're willing to get one, then I'll guide them towards there. And then I want to hear samples. Not only do I want to hear samples of their reads to make sure that their acting skills and their reading skill, not reading, but acting skills and their voice acting skills are up to par and maybe ready for a demo, but I also want to hear their studio, their acoustics, how their voice sounds, if there's a lot of echo in their room or ambiance, which a lot of the time there is and we have to fix. I just worked with this one girl and her sound was great, but there was this constant that she couldn't hear, but you can only hear it when you exported the file and she sent it to me. And I'm like, whoa, we got a big problem here.
Yeah.
And she didn't know what that was, but you can't record like that.
For sure.
So we found out it was a cable, and she rebooted her Mac, and then it all worked great. She replaced one cable and rebooted, and everything worked great. So sometimes it's something as simple as that. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's, something more difficult.
Right.
But the bottom line is this. That home studio, very important. Before you record a demo, make sure that you have that straight.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to tap on this because this happens so much with new people. And that's that they build this great studio. They have a whisper room. They spend $7,000 on a booth, right? They get a 416, mic. They have a 737, preamp, not the plug-in, but the actual thing. And they spend all this money on this beautiful studio. And they haven't coached one iota. And now they want to make a demo and break into the industry because they have this, $7,000.
I got the gear, right? Money should just start falling out of the sky.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work that way. First train, first become good at the craft, because this is not get rich quick.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And some people, you've heard this, people saying, "Oh man, I just want to make some quick cash, and break into the industry. I've always loved doing voices. People have always told me." That's all fine and dandy, but this is a real business. And if you treat it like a hobby, it'll cost you a lot of money. But if you treat it like a real business, it'll pay you money, right? And which is what we want.
Yeah.
But you got to do it right. You can't put the horse, what is it, the cart before the horse?
Yeah. And I said this to somebody the other day, exactly what you're saying. It's like, well, I could go spend $30,000 on a vintage Les Paul, but that's not going to put me in Madison Square Garden.
No.
Doesn't matter if you got the whisper room and the U87 and all that stuff that you're describing. Your ability to act comes through.
Absolutely.
Has to come through.
Take a step back, look at the big picture, work with some reputable people. Make sure that your skills are up to par, even if it's a beginning stage. But that's still the best way to do it. Get to a beginning stage. Get to the stage where you're like, you know what? I'm actually pretty good now. Maybe if I do a pay-to-play thing, voices.com or a whatever, that maybe I can make, a couple of bucks here and there and, try out your skills while you're still coaching and getting better.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you go from beginner, and then what happens after beginner? If you work on your craft, you become a intermediate. Right? Now you got things down pretty good, man. Now you're actually ready for a really good demo, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you go pro, you're just leveling up at that point. It's like you're not making a pro demo anymore because you already have one. You're not leveling up. Hey, Chuck, I want bigger agents. I want bigger jobs. I want to level up. Mm-hmm. But all through this process, the one thing that never goes away is training, because that's the one thing that's going to propel you to the next level.
For sure. And I think that the coaching never really stops. You look at professional sports, all those $1 million athletes, what do they have? Coaches. They continue to get people to work on their mechanics to make those improvements all the way along. I think that's lifelong. It never really, and that never really ends.
Yeah, and before any game, or you're not just sitting around and then game day comes and like, oh hey, we got a game tomorrow. I better put on my football suit.
Right.
It's like, dude, training before you start playing is heavy duty. I mean, it's harder than the game.
Right.
Right? They work you so hard. You got to change your diet. You got to monitor when you go to sleep, when you wake up. You got to, it's excessive because you need to be up to par if you want to win.
Right.
And that's the same here. If you want to win that job against everybody else, you need to train.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And you have to keep practicing so that when the moment to be in front of the mic for real, it has to feel like I've done this before. This is no problem. It's not the time to let your nerves, and that's not the time to learn.
Yeah.
That's the time to be like, I've got this. I've done the work to get to this point. And that's, just continually practicing, working with a coach, recording, practicing, learning how to critique yourself honestly without tearing yourself down. I think there's all of that goes together.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's funny. I was talking to a casting agent just the other day for television, and we were comparing and contrasting how like the auditioning world is different. In television, I just put yourself in front of a wall with your iPhone, and that's fine. We don't care about video quality. We don't care about sound quality. We're only looking at your acting. I was like, man, it couldn't be more different for us. Our auditions have to be how it's going to sound in broadcast. You got to, the acting has to be there. The sound quality has to be there. Your studio, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect.
But you got to also remember that when you're doing an acting audition, the reason why this is what I think, the reason why they don't care that much about it is because 50% of what they're looking for is a look.
Yeah. Right.
They're looking for a certain look, a certain vibe, a certain something. And if you are an amazing actor, but you don't have the look, you're not going to get the spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You're not going to get the gig.
Right.
But if you have the look, all right, the look, and they go like, man, he's got the look. Like that is exactly what we want. And they can't find anybody close to that look. And your acting skills are like, good, but not amazing. You're probably still going to get the job because of the look. There's a lot of actors out there that we know aren't that great of an actor. They have a look.
They've got a look for sure.
They got a look
for sure.
So and voiceover, there is your acting skill is your look.
Is your look. That's great. That's great. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You've mentioned, I think, in some of your other videos that you've got sort of your secret sauce that turns somebody's raw microphone sound into the pro level. I'm not going to ask you to reveal that secret sauce, but are there anything? Where do you think a talent who then has the responsibility of delivering that broadcast quality after the demo's done, are there any things that what are the skills that you think they need to know besides hitting record and stop?
Yeah. Here's my opinion on that. And some other people will say something different, but this is what I've learned, and only from experience. So when I record with somebody and they're recording in their studio, I don't want any EQ or any compression. I just want everything raw, right? Because most producers, when you're doing a job, they'll request, hey, send me wave file, and I want it at 24-bit, 48 hertz, and just raw, right? Nothing on it, because that way they can add whatever they want on their end when they're producing the spot, and that's for the actual pro job, right?
Yeah.
So when we're recording a demo, that's what we're doing. We're recording pro jobs, to put on your demo, but when you're recording auditions, I feel that you don't want to send out raw audio.
I agree.
Because that's the equivalent of you taking a shower, not combing your hair, not trimming your beard, wearing a shirt with holes in it, and forgetting to put your pants on and then going to an important meeting. People are going to look at you and go like, what is wrong
What
with
is
this
happening
guy?
here?
Right? Because you didn't sweeten yourself, right? You didn't comb your hair. You didn't trim your beard a little bit. You know, you put on a nice shirt. It smells good, right? Because you're going to go in front of important people. Well, your audition is going to be heard by important people.
Yeah.
First, maybe an agent or a casting director, and then maybe even the buyer, and they're going to choose who they want for that job. So if you send raw audio, which is naked with nothing pretty on it, it's not going to sound as good as some of the other people that are going to send their sweetened audio.
Yeah.
And by sweeten, I just mean this. It's very simple. It's light makeup. You know, it's not a glamour shot, right? With like, you know, all this stuff. It's not airbrushing, you know, and changing the way somebody looks. It's light makeup. It's a little bit of EQ. And the amount of EQ will be determined by the sound of your voice, your recording space, what it sounds like, and your microphone. And all of those are all different, right?
Yep.
So depending on who you are and where you're at and what mic you're using will depend on what EQ, little coloring that you might use to make the voice sound balanced. And that means that if I listen to it on nice speakers, it's going to sound really good. If you listen to it through a phone or a tablet, it's going to sound really good. And if you listen to it through small little computer speakers, it's going to sound really good. I have seen so many people lose jobs because they send raw audio for auditions.
Yeah.
And check this out. The producer and the casting director, well, they're not sound engineers. A lot of them don't really know what audio sweetening is, right? So when they hear back and they're choosing, and let's say the job lands within 3 people, okay? 3 people are now on call for this job, for this voiceover job. All reads, all acting skills are equally great, okay? Everybody has a professional studio. So how are they going to choose who they go with? Maybe they'll choose the one that sounds better, and they don't know why it sounds better, but they just know that it does. So they'll say, you know what, man, these are really good, but this guy, his voice is a little bit more present. I can understand what he's saying a little better. And it just sounds like he's like right here, and the other one sounds like he's a little too far away, or, you know, a little muffled over here. And so you lose a job, not because you're not good enough, but because you sent out naked sound.
Yeah. I was talking to Lily Waxu on an earlier video.
Awesome.
She's fantastic, and she had such similar advice. She kept saying, "Don't make the casting director think. Don't make them use their imagination about what you could be. Show them what you are. Don't make them think." So it's got to sound perfect. It should sound sweet. It should sound like you think the broadcast or whatever is going to sound.
Yeah.
But then once you get back and get the gig, you're going to send them raw because they've got a better engineer than you who really knows how to sweeten the sound, who really knows how to do it to exactly what they want for their project.
Exactly.
And it was great.
And not only that, because they just, you know, want it, and that's fine. But the first thing is that audition.
Yeah.
And that audition, nobody's going to tweak it. They're just going to listen to it as is. And not only are they going to listen to it as is, but they're going to compare it to other people.
Yeah.
And you want people to compare apples to apples, meaning that, okay, the right tone, the same, you know, great read, you know, and maybe age, demographic that they're looking for. You don't want your quality of the file that you sent in to harm you and take place and take away from all the other things.
Right.
You know what I mean? So bad.
Right.
And it's so easy. And by the way, if you're not an engineer and you're getting started and you have your little studio and you don't know how to sweeten your sound, hire somebody.
Yeah.
This is a one and done deal.
Right.
You know, maybe Mike, maybe you can help them sweeten their sound a little bit, right? A tad. that. A little something here so that it sounds nice and balanced. Or there's other people out there that I've worked with as well that do that as well. And you do it once and then you're done. You never have to do it again. You have your little template.
Yeah, I think George Whittam. George Whittam offers that. I mean, he's fantastic at it. Fantastic.
One of his services is exactly that.
He'll give you your chain. He'll give you your chain to make it right.
No matter what you're using, whether you're using Reaper or Twisted Wave or Adobe or whatever, they create a template for your sound, your mic, your room, and boom, you're done.
Yeah, yeah. And I love George. I mean, he does great work. Does great work. But I do really think that's important to have your. We always talk about your VO chain and all these things that you do, and it's really about that. Either the audition, or if you're on like the pay-to-play site, so many times you're creating the final for broadcast, wherever it's going to appear. So having that chain where you can get good sound that sounds natural and sweet without making it, so many times I get EQ curves from people and they turn the bass all the way up because they want to sound, I've got gravitas, I want to deepen my voice. So they make it, and all of a sudden it just sounds like they're talking from the bottom of a mud pit.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
No.
If they want a guy with a nice deep voice, they're going to get a guy with a nice deep voice without having to like EQ deepness into the voice.
For sure. Do you recommend, do you primarily do you do all kinds of demos? Do you do primarily commercial, like all of them? What are some of the major demos? What are the major sort of demo categories people should think about?
Number one demo anybody needs to have is the commercial demo. A, it's the foundation of the entire industry. B, it will help open the most amount of doors. And C, an agent will not sign you without one.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty important demo.
Yeah.
And then after that, you have some other important demos that depending on where you want to go. If you want to get work on your own, maybe a narration demo, right? E-learning, industrial, that type of narration is really, really important. If you want to go for agent representation and you have a commercial demo, then another great demo would be either TV promos, right? A lot of money in TV promos, in-show narration. So that's narration that's actually going to broadcast on television for a show, a documentary, something like that. Video games. And check this out. You have video games and you have animation. Two completely different industries. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, I want to make an animation video game demo. There's no such thing as an animation video game demo.
Interesting.
That's like saying I want a Mercedes Chevy car. They're totally different. You can only have one or the other or buy both. But the people that produce animation don't produce video games, and the people that produce video games don't produce animation. So,
what are the differences? That's not my world. It's not where I play. What's the difference between them?
The big difference is this: animation is comedy driven. Animation, whether it's for adults, teens, or little tiny kids like Nick Jr., Disney Jr., little juniors, 4-year-olds. No matter what age demographic the cartoon is for, it's there to entertain you, it's there to make you laugh, and it's there to make you relax after a hard day of work or keep you busy doing something while your mom's doing something else. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's comedy driven and it's entertainment driven. Video game is almost the opposite of that. It's more dramatic, it's more real, it's less wacky charactery voices and more like real voices and villains, and it's, mature, and bad words all over the place depending on the game, right?
Right.
And then you have, rated teen, then you have rated M, then you have rated E, for everybody. And so you have all these different, type of titles. But here's another important thing with those two genres if you're making a demo. So if you have let's say a commercial demo, and now you're like, you know what, I want to add a second demo, and I want that to be animation or video games. Which one should I pick? It's easy, right? Because here's the deal. Animation is a harder nut to crack simply because of this. Let's just say Nickelodeon, right? If you go there and you count how many cartoon shows they have, not ones that are reruns from old shows, because nobody's being hired for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But new shows that are actually on the air, that are producing new episodes, and you count them out. Let's just say, and this is just, figuratively speaking, let's just say there's 10 animated shows. I can't see my hands here. 10.
Yeah.
10. There's 10 animated shows, right? Well, there's no opportunity at Nickelodeon to do animation. So, but when one show goes away or is going to go away, Nickelodeon says, we need to bring in another show to replace that show. And now let's say it's a new show. And then how many opportunities are going to get cast for that new show? Maybe 7 people? Maybe 7 people.
Maybe.
They have to do all the voices. So there's only 7 opportunities. And most of those are the people that are already in the business, established, rocking and rolling because they make stuff better, right?
Right.
Let's flip to video games. They're constantly working on a new video game title. Auditions are just flying in for video games that are being produced all over the world, right? When they are producing a new video game, how many people get hired for that? Hundreds?
Hundreds, yeah. For the AAA games, got to be hundreds.
There you go. So 7 people versus hundreds, right? So from a business perspective, if you're going to do a character demo, you're better off making a video game demo than an animation demo, because an agent will see that as a more valuable demo, because you will be able to audition tons right away and probably book something in that genre way before you book something in animation.
Yeah. That's great advice. And I want to just jump back, because I've learned this just from the technical perspective for listeners, is what you're doing, the kind of work that you're going to do can also influence the design of your studio. Because if you're going to be screaming and yelling in your studio, it's going to reveal more flaws in your studio than if you're just doing a quiet audiobook kind of narration. Yeah. It reveals whole different things. So when you're doing your practicing, when you're doing your recording, do it at the levels, and really got to listen critically, because not every booth will be friendly to all different kinds of work.
It is very true. And that's why, if you're doing character work like that, and you're going to be yelling a lot, maybe knowing what microphone might be best for that type of work. Obviously, if you had George Whittam do a little template EQ thing for you to do commercials, it's going to be totally different for video game, right?
Yeah.
Or animation. So have them make you one for that, which will help your booth sound better, because he'll be able to hear what your booth sounds like when you're, screaming and talking really loud and dying and all that stuff, and kind of tweak the EQ. So get rid of some of that, ambiance that's maybe seeping through the mic at that point. And now you're balanced and ready for that, know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're speaking about the mics. If we can just detour for one more second. So I've seen, like, in a lot of your videos, for a lot of the commercial work, it seems like you prefer a shotgun. I see a lot of what I think is a 416.
Yeah, I have it right here, and I'm on it right now, and the 416. Rob's like, it's my mic of choice.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a little story about this mic, and then you'll understand why it's my mic of choice.
Yeah.
So a while back, I was recording a promo demo with this gentleman, and it was a regular television promo demo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the demo came out, and this was a remote session because he was living somewhere else. He used his 416, Sennheiser 416. And man, his voice just sounded great. He's had a voice kind of like yours, had a little bit of edginess and all that stuff. We made this great demo. And then about 6 or 7 months later, he said, "Hey, Chuck, I want to do a sports promo demo. So not just regular TV, but more all sports promos."
Interesting.
And I'm like, great. And he goes, "And I picked up this new little beauty. You're going to love it. My voice sounds amazing on it." And I was like, "Oh, wow, I can't wait to hear it." So he sent me some tests, and it was, he picked up a new Neumann TLM 103.
Yeah.
And his voice it sounded beautiful on that mic. It's a gorgeous sounding mic, right? So we recorded, I didn't know better. We recorded this sports promo demo on that TLM 103. And I mixed it and did everything and sent it back. And I noticed while I was mixing it that I couldn't get his voice to cut through the production as well. Like, no matter what I did with EQ and all that stuff, it was just like something was holding his voice back from like cutting through the production. I did my best. I sent it to him. And then a couple days later, he said, I love the demo, but is there any way we could maybe bring the production down a little bit so my voice kind of cuts through more? So I said, sure. I pulled back the production a little bit so his voice kind of cuts through a little bit more and sent it to him. And he goes, you know what, Chuck? I'm A-Bing the first promo demo we did with this new one. And for some reason, the first one just like, you know, it hits you, it punches you in the face. You know, it's aggressive and it's right there. And this one kind of like doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, is it something with the mix or something like that? And I said, buddy, I hate to tell you this, but the reason why it doesn't do that is because of the new mic.
Yeah.
The TLM 103 does not slice through production the way the 416 does. Hence why most promo/trailer guys use the Sennheiser 416, because they can get up close, they can talk really softly like this, and it still cuts through these explosions. Of And so that's not why this is my mic of choice, but that's when I figured out, wow, now I know why this mic is so requested by, you know, the industry.
Yeah.
But when I use it on a guy or a gal, young or old, big voice, smaller voice, I can EQ, sweeten, if you will, that voice to sound so great with this mic always. There's never any like overtones or undertones of anything that becomes a problem.
Yeah. I love mine. I absolutely I love mine. And you know, you can
Why aren't you using it right now?
I'm not. It's for reasons that'll be explained in some other video. It's not here. This one, but I certainly know exactly what I don't know how to describe what it is about the 416 that makes it do that. I don't know how to describe it.
It's just the characteristics of the
it's
of
magic.
The mic and
there's
the
something magical about it.
And and it has this almost, here's part of it. So this mic, the 416, was intended to be used, you know, 6 feet away from you, right? Aiming down at you at a production stage.
Yeah.
And by the way, you go see a show being filmed, you're going to see a bunch of 416s, you know, all over the freaking ceiling and, you know, following the actor around everywhere he goes. And so the mic was built for that. It's very, very, very directional to really capture that voice. And it's intended to be up here and record you down here. So a lot of people use it like this, you know, aiming up, which is bad.
Right.
Because now it's aiming at your head.
Right.
So it's not capturing your stomach and your chest and getting those lowers naturally.
Yeah.
So you really have to have it like this.
Yeah.
Aiming down here and into here. And so because that mic was like literally made for those long distance, you know, shots like that, when you take it and you do this with it, it does something that no other mic does.
Yeah.
It wasn't made for that. Right. So it creates this own natural like thing that it does that just, it's magic.
Yeah, it is.
It was an accident is what it was.
I hope they never stop making it.
They won't. It's too popular now.
So, but on the other side of it, so when you're talking, it strikes me that that's probably not always the right microphone for, say, video game work, where you need to maybe not cut through, or there are other situations. Are there other microphones? Like what other, if you were going to create a locker that I want to do commercials and video games, is it a cardio? What are you looking for? I'm on a ribbon right now, which is probably not the right one for that. But
by what people are using. Okay. So if you go to a major market like Los Angeles, right? And you go to a major big studio in Los Angeles where they're cutting the next, you know, giant video game. In that studio, they're not going to be using the 416, right? They're going to be using probably the Neumann U87s and 49s, right? And things like that. These like microphones that are in giant studios that have been used by everybody from Led Zeppelin to freaking the Cars, you know what I mean? And every song that you could possibly imagine. And even today. So it's one of those mics that it's a go-to, it's a staple, you know what I mean? Everybody sounds great on these expensive $5,000 mics. You've done shootouts with those mics against other mics that cost like $200.
Yeah.
And you hear and you go like, whoa, man, that's like pretty damn close.
Yeah.
You know, and it's pretty amazing. But when you're talking about producing a video game, nobody's going to use a $200 mic.
Right. For sure. For sure.
I mean, first of all, they don't even want to say that they did that.
Right.
Oh, we only use $200 mics so they go for the biggest, you know, the most expensive,
sure.
the best, you know. They want a big studio, you know, they want, you know, that sound, and they use big actors, you know, and they go big. But yeah, the 416, very versatile. You can use it for anything at home. If you're doing a lot of video games and stuff like that, people might ask for, say, a TLM 103, right?
Yep.
Or something like that. I mean, very rarely will a production company that produces a lot of video games or even animation stuff, very rarely will they say, oh, we want to use the Rode NT1A.
Right.
Now, nothing against Rode. They make good products. And by the way, the NT1A is, I know people that have one and they sound great on it. But people won't ask for it because they want a higher quality level.
Right.
You know, and sometimes, unfortunately, it's just a name. You know, why do people drive Mercedes? A lot of the time it's just because it says Mercedes.
Right.
You know, and some people are, you know, Chevy fans and, you know, diehards, and they will only drive the Chevy.
Yeah.
Right. So it's that has, I think, a little bit to do with it as well. But, you know, this is all advanced information. And if you're starting in this industry, just get a good mic.
Just get a good
that
mic.
Somebody like you can recommend that will be good for commercial and video games and narration and, you know, all this stuff for now. And then later on, when you're making some dough, then you add a nice mic to your collection.
Right. Chances are you're going to need to do a lot of work before you need to get to the U87 level, or you've got booked for a gig where you're going to get paid $20,000 or $30,000, then go buy the microphone. But you know, along the way, you know, you don't need to start on day one with $20,000 worth of gear in your booth. You can do it for certainly a whole lot less. Certainly a whole lot less.
Way less.
Way less.
There are. And you've done shootouts, which, by the way, I love your shootouts, man, because your shootouts, you're comparing like 4 mics at the same time. I'm like, oh, wow, this is going to be interesting because I know that that's a really expensive mic. Yeah. And then you're doing your thing, you're talking, and I'm like, damn, you know, that's a good shootout. You can really, really hear the quality of these freaking mics. Yeah. You do the best shootouts of anybody on freaking YouTube.
Man,
there's nobody that even comes close to the shootouts that you do. I swear to God, I don't even go to another channel. I just go like, let's see if Mike has one on there. By golly, he does. There he is. And that's the one that I go by. But choose a mic like that. You know what I mean? Choose one that sounds like a really expensive mic, but isn't, and have that be your first mic.
Yeah.
If you're on a tight budget.
And you can. I think what's been nice about the past few years in sort of this explosion of this creator economy or whatever it is, there has been there are a lot of choices out there at a variety of different price points. You can even get away with a few hundred, 700, 1,000, whatever it is. There's stuff for everybody, and they can be your forever mic. If you're just going to be an audiobook narrator, you don't necessarily need to go with the Avalon preamp and the Neumann U87. There's a lot of stuff that you can do.
Yeah. The only thing is, if you say we're going to do audiobooks and you were going to work for Random House.
Right.
Random House will say, well, you have to have a preamp. And yes, okay, these are our approved preamps, and then these are our approved microphones, which is TLM 103, U87, maybe a couple others. They have a list of approved microphones and approved preamps, and if you don't have that, you're not working for Random House, which pays the most amount of money.
Right.
Something to think about. If you're just using ACX, they don't even care.
They don't care.
They don't care so much that they're going to let you edit the whole book on your own, you know, and then pay you for it.
Yep.
But love ACX. I'm not, you know, putting anybody down, just saying that there's a lot of differences out there depending on, you know, company that you want to work for and their, you know, parameters of what they like, dislike, and all that good stuff. So knowledge is really, really, really important, man.
Yeah. Are there any things? And I know we've been going really long, but when you're thinking about somebody EQing their voice, I usually try and get people to minimize the amount of EQ. Are there any specific sort of things that are general rules that everybody can listen for? Like when you're getting somebody to think about how they might EQ their voice.
Yeah.
It's usually not much, but what are the like? Are there a couple of things that, for the purposes of audition, that they're thinking about? What could I do to maybe sweeten that sound just a little bit?
I mean, there are a couple of really stable little things that everybody can do that come into action. And let's say that this is the EQ line, and it is now flat.
Right.
Okay, that's no EQ, just one line going straight across. All right. Down here on the bottom, right at around 70 hertz, is where you can take that and you can drop it all the way down. They call that a high pass filter.
Yeah.
And the reason why you want to cut that frequency out is because the voice doesn't really live there, but noise does. So if you eliminate this noise here, what happens is now your voice sounds a little clearer. And if there's any little ambiances in that room that produce those 70, and by the way, a lot of the pops are in that 70 as well.
Yeah.
So it'll help you with, plosives and things like that. So boom, get rid of those. Typically for me, I have always found that the voice loves the 2K, which is up here, 2K and 4K. The voice loves 2K and 4K. So we're talking about if you just blip it up a little bit, like 2 dB, 1 dB, and play around with adding a little bit of those. It helps your voice have a little bit more presence. So you can hear the S's and hear the crispiness maybe of. If you put too much, then it becomes over sibilant and you hear like, it's too much. Nobody can handle it. But just enough where you go like, you know what? Yeah, now my S's are just a little bit like right there. And when you add music or stuff like that, now those things pops that you can hear the T's, and you hear all these little important parts of the words. And then the 2K, same thing. It just adds a really, really nice presence to just be able to cut through certain things.
Interesting.
Anything above that, then you're getting fancy, right? 32, like some people are like, oh man, if you bump up that 32K, not even dogs can hear 32K, but they say, yeah, but it adds this, what do they call it? It adds air.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, how about if I just leave the door open and let some air in, and then we'll be cool, and I'll be a little cooler myself. So, and by the way, on my preamp, I do have air, okay, and I do play with that. But see, that's me, and part of this special secret sauce of mine is that I do add other things that maybe most people don't think about because they're extra.
Yeah.
But for most people out there that are working out of their booth and they're sending auditions in and they're, they want to have a little bit of sweetening on their stuff, you're not going to think about those things.
Right. And I think it's really important to note for the listeners is you've got professionally trained ears over thousands of voices and thousands. It's, how to add those seasonings without overdoing it.
Yeah.
Because it can be really easy to overdo, especially if your ears are untrained and you don't know what you're listening for. We're not just adjusting these frequencies willy-nilly.
No, you're not just going whamp. And by the way, everybody's a little bit different. Some people have a little bit of a crisper sound, and sometimes you may not even touch that, or maybe you might want to bring it down a little bit in that 4K, just a slight little, dB, and there it is. Okay, now it's not harsh now. Take the harshness away out of a voice. You know how like some people talk like this, and they might have like a little bit more of like this frequency in their voice.
Right.
Well, if you beef up some of those frequencies I just talked about, it's be really obnoxious.
Certainly can be.
It's not going to sound that good anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to know the voice, and which is why, by the way, when you have a professional dial in your sound, they're looking at all of this. And they're going like, okay, he's got too much of that. Let's bring that down. It's a little harsh there.
Right.
Let's slightly bring that down. He needs a little bit of this. And let's get rid of all that rumble in the bottom, which nobody needs. And boom, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what you're looking for.
It's minute. These are little changes that are like, you know, if you had a pen, it would be, you need a microscope to like make these little changes like that. They're not like, you know, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, right. If you're using a parametric equalizer and you're drawing those curves, it should not look like a roller coaster.
No, it should not look like a roller coaster.
Very gentle. Very gentle.
Very, very gentle.
Very gentle. Yeah. And that's great.
And same thing with compression. You know, when you're using compression, by the way, when you're doing video games and things like that, a little compression is good because that way you're not blowing out your mic. And some people are like, well, I have to get really far away from my mic in order to not blow it out. And I'm like, well, that's not good because now you're recording yourself and you sound like you're in the next room.
Yeah.
That's bad. People don't want to hear that. You still want to maintain a good level, you know, from your microphone and just capture your voice, you know, in good quality, but you need to know how to control those levels. And if you're not using some kind of a limiting, you know, type of effect, it's going to be kind of hard to control those. Now, I can do it because I can bring the preamp way down without, you know, even bringing in a limiter while I still have the talent closed. And then later on, because my noise floor is so low, when I lift up that sound, it's still crystal clear.
Right.
But with most people, if they do that, they record really, really low on the preamp. When they lift that up and they normalize it to minus 3 dB, they just normalize, you know, all this noise along with it. And now the file sounds like,
right.
Not good, not good.
So maybe you do have to spend like $30,000 to get that booth.
No, you absolutely don't, man. All you need is the help of somebody to help you make a couple little tweaks that are one-offs and say, hey, I got my setting for this genre, I have my setting for this genre, and I have my setting for audiobooks.
And that's what you do. I mean, I've got those sort of those presets. I've got different chains for different things. I know when if I've got a shout or if I've got to, you know, sound intimate, you just sort of work on those. And I've had people help me create mine because you know, we all need the objective set of ears.
You need the objective set of ears. Exactly. Listen, it's even if we know that we can do it, sometimes you want to, well, okay, I know that I can do it. And I know where my ears are at. But if I have somebody else listen to it, they might hear something that I didn't.
Yeah.
That maybe aren't even coming out of my speakers or headphones.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Because depending on what you're using, it might, you know, make more or less of something. But yeah, so that's really important.
Do you think, if you look forward, do you think that we're going to go back? Do you think that the day of going into the studio is done? I
don't think it's done forever. I think that, you know, some people are still going to like, you know, going to a studio if it's near them. But I'll give you a scenario. I know voice actors in the animation and video game industry and every other industry that have moved away from major markets like New York and LA and have, you know, moved to like Nashville or, you know, Utah or wherever, right? Because maybe a better quality of life, maybe they have family there. There's the hustle and bustle is gone. And some of these are actors and some of them are directors and producers. And so from a producer's perspective, and just think about this and you'll answer your own question. From a producer's perspective, okay, so you would normally, pre-COVID, get up in the morning, get ready, grab, you know, a coffee at Starbucks, you know, then you'd go to your first studio in Santa Monica, which from, if you live in, say, you know, Hollywood or the Valley, you're going to Santa Monica, it's going to take you a while.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
An hour and a half to get out there or 2 hours. And then so you drive out there and then you're done with that. And now you have another session that you are directing back in Hollywood. And so you're going to do another hour and a half or 2 hours back in Hollywood. Some guy cut you off. You spilled coffee on top of you. Then you got to go have lunch, and then you got to wait. So you're going to be late for your third thing, which is in the Valley. And so you get to the Valley, and you're a little late, and the talent's already there, and you're a little frustrated because you got coffee stains on your shirt. And then you get through that, and then you're done with that, and now you got to drive all the way back home, and that's going to take you about another hour, and then you're done. And you basically directed 3 sessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that same producer gets up, makes his little coffee in his kitchen, pops in on his computer to whatever studio he wants in the frickin' world. All right. And he can direct 7 sessions in a few hours. Not 3 in an entire day,
right,
but 7 in a few hours. Who wants to go back to the other?
No doubt.
So the directors don't want to go back to it. The producers are like, man, the acting world, not voice acting, the acting, they can't make a movie remotely.
Right,
You know what I mean? They have to be there on location, on set, whatever. But us voice actor, the whole voice acting industry, we have now been introduced. The technology is there, and nobody really wants to go back because, like, look at you, Mike. Imagine if we wanted to do this and we didn't have this.
Right.
I would have to travel to you.
Yeah.
You would have to travel to me. I mean, all the money, extra money that goes into expense, all these things. And now you're like, hey, can you do this at 1 o'clock? Sure. Okay. Boom. We did it. Boom. We're here. We're having a blast. We're talking. I feel like you're literally right here in my studio.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I don't miss live interaction because to me, this is interacting. It's real. You are real, right?
Yeah.
You're not a robot.
And you know what? For voice actors, there's always been a pane of glass between us. We're always on mic and headphones between talent and director.
Yeah. So that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed, has it?
The only thing that changes now is that you're at home. You don't have to drive in traffic. You can get more done. You can do more auditions. You can do more jobs. And it's just a whole different world. So I don't know if people are going to want to say, yeah, you know what? I want to give up this convenience, of me being my own boss, so to speak, my own time, managing my own time, and going back to where traffic has to manage my time, and be out there with the crazies. There's some crazies out there.
Yeah.
Every city's got them.
Yeah, they sure do.
Wait a minute. I think we're kind of the crazies.
Back to wearing pants.
Oh,
yeah, right. Back to wearing pants.
I mean, who wants to wear pants?
So I've got 2 more questions that are related to that, and then we'll sew it up there.
Sounds good.
So we have this remote world. 2 questions. Yeah. One, for the studio to studio connection, for me it's been Source Connect. Is it Source Connect? Are all of your sessions Source Connect? Are there other technologies people are looking for to get that studio to studio broadcast quality connection between them?
That's a really great question. First of all, Source Connect is almost like the industry standard right now.
Yeah.
And that's when you're working, studio to studio, and for actual jobs. When I produce a demo, I like using Zoom only because I want visual, right, which Source Connect doesn't have. I want to see the talent in their booth, and I want them to record themselves. So I'll have them share their screen, and I can watch their levels and guide them through. Okay, let's export that now right here. Yeah, go to file. I can, if they don't know how to work it at all, I can walk them through it. Right, and really be. And so what happens during the sessions is that they learn how to actually engineer a session. They're like, oh wow, Chuck, this is like really easy. I'm like, I told you.
Yeah.
But here's the bonus. The bonus is that because they're recording in their own studio, on their own mic, and their own booth, that when somebody says, and they have their demo done, that when somebody says, hey, okay, this demo is great and you're great and blah, blah, but what about your studio? They can say, well, the demo you just heard was recorded in my studio.
Yep.
Boom.
So perfect.
That's why I do it. I want to showcase their skill. I want to showcase their talent. I want to showcase all the things that are important in their demo, but I also want to showcase their studio sound.
Yeah. So that I think you've actually answered both parts of it. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. And then second part was
How cool is that?
Yeah, you got to have a camera. I think you got to have a camera.
It's
Would you say that?
Yeah, people want to see, you know what I mean? And if you give the producer the choice of seeing or not seeing the talent, they're always going to be like, yeah, I like to see the talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to see their face. I want to see their hand movement. I want to, I want to see if their expressions match my directing.
For sure. For sure. I've certainly, like, for the gig, when you're actually hired for the gig, it's, for me, a lot of times it's been Source Connect without the camera.
Exactly.
But for so much other stuff, I think just recording locally and using Riverside, Google Meet, Zoom, Skype, whatever it is, having that, still being able to maintain that eye contact and letting them see you. And I think for the talent, it also helps you learn how to get over some nerves, because if you do go into a real studio, people are going to be looking at you through the glass. You have to be comfortable with people watching you perform. And a lot of voice actors are not comfortable having people watch us perform, because we look weird when we're behind the microphone sometimes.
And you know what? You just got to get over that.
You got to get over it.
That's part of the gig, right? And I mean, so many video games and animation shows now are being recorded remotely as well, because some of these people moved, but they're still on major shows and major games. They didn't lose the job. Just like, oh, okay, so if you're not in LA, you just have to have a broadcast quality studio with Source Connect.
Yep. Perfect.
And maybe sometimes, a camera.
Yeah.
So that the director, because I know that in that setting, directors want to see you, and
right.
It's important.
Yeah. Perfect. I think we've covered everything that I can think of covering for this hour. Chuck, I'm so inspired by you. You've been so instrumental to helping me become better at my craft. The things that you do the things that you've done for the voiceover world, both from the way you do your demos, what you and Stacy do with your interviews, we can't thank you enough. You're such a value to this industry. Just thank you. That's all I can say. Just thanks.
Well,
you're so great.
Thank you for your kindness, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate your kind words, and as I said earlier, I was so excited when Rob called me and said, "Hey, would you like to do an interview with the booth junkie?" I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me?"
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes,
I really appreciate it.
So I was equally excited to meet with you and chat with you, and it has been fun. I have to say,
it has been.
Your questions were really great. And listen, if you ever want to do it again and you have a new set of questions and other things pop up, man, I am always
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to do this again. We've got,
and I would like to say, just to the people out there that maybe don't know our channel, so VOBuzzWeekly.com or VOBuzzWeekly on YouTube, over 400 interviews with all the top actors, producers, agents, one-on-one, man, right there, asking all the questions that you need to know.
It is an absolute gold mine. Absolute gold mine.
And I've had people go there with no experience, and then a couple years later say, "Man, I watched your show. I learned this. I reached out to that coach from watching them on your show. Then I reached out to this agent from watching them on their show, and now I have a voiceover career."
Yeah.
So they went from zero to freaking career,
Yeah.
Basically watching that show. And then also, if you're interested in a demo and you think that you're ready, or don't know if you're ready for a demo and want to maybe explore that, then reach out to me via my website at demosthatrock.com.
Perfect. That is so great. And everybody, go talk to Chuck. We really appreciate it.
Go talk to Chuck.
Go talk to Chuck.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much, Chuck. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We'll talk soon, buddy. Be well, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, pal.